Hey everyone, so you've got a 401k, you think, and you're wondering what do I do with it, or you're inquiring on how to actually initiate a rollover and get your accounts and your assets consolidated, nice and clean and organized. I'm going to cover a few topics here in today's video on the 401k and the rollover process, and again, what's usually recommended versus what's not. I guess we will start with this interesting statistic, which is how many 401ks are forgotten about. So that's usually why I'm an advocate of getting these things rolled over for yourselves, keeping it clean and organized, whether you do that on your own or you use a financial planner like myself to keep you organized. Check this out. The amount of money in lost or forgotten 401ks is sitting at about $1.7 trillion. That's insane. It's about 30 million total lost accounts. And what that does, either for yourself, is well, I mean, it is your money. You should want to enjoy it and keep it organized. But it creates a nightmare for the estate for finding stuff and getting it to the rightful owner or whatnot. Every state's a little different here with their unclaimed funds too. But essentially, what happens is if it's never claimed, it goes to the state. And if there's never a claim filed against it, the state can spend that money, kind of like tax revenue in a weird workaround way. Now they do have to pay it out, obviously, unless there's a statute of limitations on some of these states. So they will get it to you, but if it's lost and forgotten about, not notated anywhere, not clean and organized, yeah, it goes to the state. So thanks for the extra tax, I guess. So number one, that's why I like to roll these things over, keep it clean, organized, and consolidated. So that being said, here's the process on it. And again, you can do this yourself. What I find over the years, though, is it's a little bit time consuming. And a lot of my job as a financial planner for my clients is I do this legwork for them. And I really believe, honestly, a lot of the value is in that too as well, versus trying to do this all on your own. So here we go. The first step on how to roll over an old 401k, and this also applies to any other retirement accounts, lump sum pensions, TSPs, 403Bs, deferred comps, etc. All those different names of employer types. This really does apply for all those. But the first step is going to be finding it. And these things can change names. I should warn you. Sometimes the contracts on the 401k they may switch from a Vanguard to a Fidelity, for example, or vice versa, or Principal, or Voya, or there's probably a good handful of names that you might recognize there that I mentioned. So they can change names from when you're employed there to when you're not employed there anymore. But the first step is to find where it was. Sometimes contacting HR is a good step if you literally have no idea where this thing is at. Now, there has to be correspondence sent out to you legally, whether that's electronically to your email on file at the time or to an address you had on file at the time when you're employed there. The funny part is I've run into a lot of these for clients where it's so ancient and we're hunting these things down that they had an old email on file, they had their old work email on file, they don't have access to it anymore, an old phone number, they definitely have a wrong address. So sometimes we're calling a few different custodians, the big ones, like, well, I think it was at Empower, or I think it was at Vanguard or something. So we'll call around just to verify with people. Unfortunately, you have to do that dance of being on hold, getting a rep on the line, going through a validation, usually birthday, social security, etc., and just seeing if you have money there. But on the flip side, sometimes you can be surprised how much you'd find. Honestly, I think the most I found is a little over 100 grand in someone's account. They'd kind of forgotten it was there, which seems nuts, but it does happen. Usually these things are smaller though, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 grand is what I'll kind of find out there when I'm working through clients. I'm cleaning up their buffet plate of 401ks, if you will. So step one, find it. What we're looking for there basically is the name of the custodian, and those are those names I popped off at you: Empower, Voya, Principal, Vanguard, Fidelity, Schwab, etc. I want to find that name first. And then after that, you may be able to create an online login for it based on your credentials, but they're probably dated. So you're probably going to call in, update your profile, and then you can create an online login. That is recommended at that point because that's going to be a follow-up step here, which I'll mention shortly. Step two is you're going to go ahead and open up your accounts where these are going to land. So you have to have a landing spot for the old 401k to roll into. That landing spot is either going to be a rollover IRA, a Roth IRA, or a brokerage account based on what kind of money you plugged into that old 401k. Typically, it's traditional pre-tax money. So you're going to open a rollover IRA, or traditional IRA works too. And that's going to be your landing spot for it. You do not want to commingle Roth money with pre-tax money when you're doing these rollovers. It could create a taxable event for you that is not your intent. And so you can mess this up essentially at some point. If you get stuck anywhere, just stop what you're doing, find yourself a financial planner, or find someone who's done this before, or call someone, or call the custodian. Someone will help. Now, typically when you're calling in to do this to the custodian, they can't give you advice. They are in a call center somewhere and they can give you generic help, but they cannot give you specialized tailored advice like your own financial advisor or planner can. But again, we're going to open that account first at the custodian. So for all of my clients, we use Fidelity or Schwab to manage their money. So what we're going to do is we're going to open a Fidelity rollover IRA. It's going to have its own account number. Usually I do this at onboarding. So we're a step ahead of this constantly. So we already have that account number, and this step is already done pretty much forever for their entire career. Now, again, don't commingle your funds. Traditional pre-tax needs to go to a traditional pre-tax IRA or rollover IRA. Roth needs to go to Roth. And then after tax needs to go into a brokerage account. Again, don't mix those up. Step 3, you're going to initiate that rollover now. This, again, some variables here. Now, you can usually do this 2 ways. You can call into the custodian. So what I do with my clients is I actually call in with them on the phone. We just conference call in. We get them validated. And then they give me permission to speak on their account. And I can pretty much say everything and anything from there after the validation is complete. Because the person on the other line, the call center, is going to blabber off some financial gibberish and so on and so forth, and not really help them, but they're going to initiate this for them. So I like to be on the line for my people with them so I can make this make sense and also make sure it gets done and completed for them as well too. I think this is a huge component of what we do for people. Obviously, that's well beyond outside of financial planning or their actual portfolio, et cetera, et cetera. So again, initiate that rollover. You can call it in. You can also do it online a lot more typically these days too, and that is a lot better. I find that that's faster. There's not a wait or hold time typically. Now, what that involves is you, as the client, need to figure out your login, or you need to register your login essentially, and that may involve a call initially to the custodian to clear all your stuff and update your profile, but it does help a ton to have a login to this account. So we pop into your account, we log in, we just share a screen on Zoom. Boom, boom, boom. It's probably a few clicks of your mouse and button to and a submission. We get a tracking number, and that step is done. If you have to do it on the phone, it does take longer, but you can do it that way. Sometimes on this step, there's going to be additional steps too, outside of initiating it verbally or online. You may have some paperwork that requires a wet signature, maybe a DocuSign signature to do too for that specific plan. So don't be shocked if it does. Sometimes that paperwork has to be notarized. Sometimes there has to be spousal consent on there and notarized as well. I'm seeing less and less of that these days, which is nice, but it could happen on there. Okay, so you made it through a lot of the hard stuff now. One more thing on step 3 I should mention too. When you call in or when you log in, the reason I mentioned in step 2, you need to have your account set up wherever these funds are going to, the landing spot, is because step 3, you're going to need to provide a few things after you validate yourself. You're going to need the new IRA or Roth account number. You're going to need to know how to make the check payable to. Typically, it's FBO, your name, for benefit of your name, and it goes to whatever institution. So yes, it's like literally a check that gets mailed. Either it goes directly from the old 401k custodian to your IRA or Roth custodian. Sometimes, though, the check actually goes to you first, and there's no other options. So don't be shocked. And then it's your responsibility to then forward it on to the next custodian. Or usually with my people, what I like to do is we just hop on the Fidelity mobile app and we do a mobile check deposit into their IRA, boom, done. So that's a nice new feature that'll save you some time, but that does happen. So you will need the address the check will be mailed to occasionally. One nice thing I've noticed sometimes what's happening now is like Empower's one of these. They'll do an ACH rollover transfer. So essentially behind the scenes, Empower's rolling a 401k over directly into Fidelity. ACH, there's no check. There's no snail mail being mailed around. There's no follow-up there. And it's really, really fast. It happens in like 2 or 3 days. That is way different than how it's been in the past, honestly. Sometimes this process takes 7 to 10 business days for those checks to be mailed between the custodians or to you first and then the custodian, or longer because you're busy. at work with kids, whatever, and you got to throw a stamp on this silly thing and mail it out. It seems ridiculous, but that is the process. So hopefully we get more ACHs. All right, back to step 4 now. We're going to wait for that check, like I was mentioning. Now, you don't want to wait too long. Once you get it, you want to get this thing deposited, not only so you don't miss any market growth, obviously, too, as well. You just want to get this done and you're really close. And you don't want that check to go stale or the date to go stale on it, because then guess what you have to do? Call into the old custodian, have the check reissued again. There may or may not be a fee. Wait for the mail again. It's an entire process you don't want to do. So, again, when I'm working with my people, we can usually get this done in a grand total of a couple weeks, sometimes even faster, sometimes a week. And guess what I do on my end? I set reminders for us too, and I make sure I follow up on it too, so that this gets done. Now, once the funds have left your old 401k and you've done all 4 of they're now been deposited into your new rollover IRA or Roth IRA at your new custodian or preferred custodian, you are not done yet. It's cash to cash. So yes, your investments were liquidated at the old custodian. Now they're sitting in the new custodian. It's all sitting in cash still, meaning you are not invested. No one's going to do that for you unless you have an advisor on that account that's authorized to trade in. So on all my people, I know when it hits their account, and immediately I get that sucker invested. If you're doing this all on your own, you need to pretty much check every day for when that money hits, that 401k check clears into your new account. Then you're going to have cash to trade with or invest with. If you leave it in cash, guess what? It's in cash, and cash doesn't really grow. It's just making a simple interest. So this is a very important step for a lot of do-it-yourselfers that people think it's done there. Okay, it's invested again. I'm done. I did all these steps successfully on my own. It's not necessarily done. You can sit in cash for years and really hurt yourself over the long term because you're not getting the growth that you should be getting there, especially the younger you are. So step 5 is, once it hits your new custodian, make sure you get it working for yourself and get it invested. Now, the grand total of this too, again, happening is usually between 2 and 4 weeks. You can usually get it done in 2 weeks, though, if you're working with someone who's done this many times before. If you're doing it on your own because you're busy and it's your first time, it may seem overwhelming. You may mix up a step here and there, or just, you're busy. So make sure you follow these steps 1 through 5, pretty much in that order too. And remember, if you get stuck anywhere, please find yourself a professional. You can mess this up. You can cause yourself tax consequences. You could accidentally withdraw this money instead of roll it over if you don't know the terminology potentially. So don't hurt yourself. Don't pay the IRS any more taxes or penalty than you should already. You want this to be a rollover that is a tax-free event or a non-taxable event happening, because it's going to a like-to-like account. You want to make sure you keep this clean, organized, consolidated, and that you actually have a plan. Hope that helps with 401ks and any other retirement account when you're rolling it over. My name is Justin Hodges.